Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day, the week, the month. Romaine Bostick, Caroline Hyde, counting you down to the closing bell. And here to help take us beyond that bell, our global simulcast team. Joining us right now, Tim Stenovec, a shortened team here, bringing together our Bloomberg Television, radio, and YouTube audiences worldwide to parse through the most crucial moments of the day. This is an intimate gathering, just three of us today. Normally it's five, but Tim, I mean, what a way to end the week, to end the month here, because it is a relatively quiet day.
Yeah, I mean, sell in May and go away. I guess it certainly remains to be seen. A relatively quiet day, but if we look at what happened over the last 5 days, over the last week, green across the screen, the Dow higher by 1%, 1.22% for the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ, when it comes to these indices, higher by more than 2%, the clear winner just in the last 5 days, guys.
Yeah, so S&P 500 actually really close to its record high right now, less than 30 points away from it. So they haven't actually sold in May, but maybe they're going away because volume's off by 12% on the day at the moment, Romaine.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a good point here because you talk about the trading range that we've been in, something around 4,056, just above that 4,200 level here. That's basically what the market's been camped out at. And look, a lot of it is really tied to those inflation expectations and I guess the Fed reaction to that. Until there's a little bit more clarity in the data, I think you could see us range bound for a little bit longer.
Yeah, look, and I think if there's one story that the bond market is telling us right now, at least this is what John Schraner, the chief investment advisor at People's United Advisors, just told us on Bloomberg Radio. The bond market is saying that inflation is indeed transitory, and they're taking what the Fed is saying at face value.
Yeah, I love the bond market. By the way, the bond market today, that's called unch, as Tay would always tell us here. Your 30-year unch at 228. You're getting about 159 basis points if you're going to dive into a 10-year today. But let's dive into what we're seeing here in the equity markets here on the day. 4203 on the S&P 500. That's basically going to be unch on the day. It's up fractionally, about less than 0.1% here. Similar story for the NASDAQ Composite, 13,748. The Dow Jones Industrial Average look like it's going to finish the day right around 34,530. And just quickly on a monthly basis here, we're talking about a Dow that is managing to end up about 2%. The S&P also in the green, as is the Russell 2000. It looks like it's going to eke out about 0.1 percentage point gain on a monthly basis. The NASDAQ in the whole by about 1.5%.
Russell 2000 just managed to do it on the month. That means it's 8 straight months of gains for the Russell 2000. We haven't seen that sort of winning streak remain since 1995. Meanwhile, I'm looking at what's happening on a breakdown from industry basis. Chips is where it's at today. On the S&P 500, up 1.5%. Nvidia, thank you very much, at a record high, as you were telling us earlier, Romaine. So that's a company, of course, affected by the overall supply chain issues. You'll dig into it more in a moment. Bond proxy's doing well as well. We saw yields just tick down a little bit. Real estate is up. Utilities are up as well. Software and services. I mean, we've got to call out the likes of Salesforce and their numbers doing well there. On the bottom, we're in the downside, off by 0.5%. Food, staples on the downside as we all get ready for our barbecues, our grills. Autos also on the downside as well. Banks giving up some of the gains of yesterday, Tim.
Yeah, we talk about here some of the gainers on the day. You mentioned Nvidia at a record high. That's the close you're looking at there, 649 and change, up 5% on the day. Keep an eye on Zoom. Zoom Video is actually going to report earnings next week here. That's obviously a big pandemic play. We'll see whether that pandemic play turns into a post-pandemic play. Ulta Beauty had great earnings, up 5% here on the day. One analyst over at Evercore ISI calling it a mic drop type of quarter. And keep an eye on Well-Built. This isn't a company we talk about much, but this is a company that basically makes all of those kitchen appliances that you see in restaurants here. So the stoves, refrigerators, convection ovens, and well, looks like there's a little bit of a bidding war going on for this company here. Ali Holding coming in with a proposed bid for $23 a share. Remember, Middleby already had a bid in for this. Remember, this company backed by Carl Icahn. Those shares closing up above that bid at $24.71, up 24% on the day.
Yeah, Romaine, you have the gainers, I have the decliners, and some interesting stories playing out on the downside today, starting with Boeing, the worst performer in the Dow today. Boeing finishing the day down just about 1.5%. It halted deliveries of its 787 Dreamliner, this coming just 2 months after restarting them as the company works to get regulatory approval for its plan to resolve those previously disclosed quality issues. Also watching Big Lots, finishing the day down just about 5.6%. The closeout retailer falling after it forecasts that gross margin is going to shrink. This has to do with a result of those rising freight costs. It's getting more expensive to ship, and that's hitting the company. And a really interesting story playing out when it comes to PC makers. HP Inc. finishing the day down about 9%. Dell not performing as badly, but down just about 1%. The company's reported revenue and earnings. It showed that people and companies, Caroline, are continuing to buy PCs, but investors right now are concerned that that pandemic peak may have happened, Caroline.
Meanwhile, I look at also what's on the red, and for our global radio viewers, TV viewers, YouTube, I'm looking at what's happening in the world of FX right now, because actually it's a bit of a dollar strength kind of a story today. We have in general been talking about the weakness that we've seen in that particular currency, of course, the US dollar, but today it's on the upside. We're seeing some of the commodity-related currencies on the downside versus it. The Kiwi, the New Zealand dollar, off by 0.6%. Aussie dollar off by 0.5% as well. Swiss franc too. So we do see some perhaps giving back of the gains of the commodity run that we've seen. Steel, though, when I look at commodities, up 3%. Nat gas doing well. Also, oil having its best month since April. Of course, as we head into the driving season in the United States, we did see a bit of a bid over the course of the month for the likes of oil. Iron ore up 2.2%. Now, iron ore had, of course, been on the downside. China managing to push back against some of the rallying commodities. We just see a pop back up in that particular commodity. And when I'm looking at bonds across the board, a mixed picture. But I know it yields down slightly today, Tim, when we see the US bond market.
Yeah, well, let's head back to the equity market and talk a little bit about the end of the month when it comes to equities. The big three indices finishing the month, the Dow finishing the month higher by 1.93%. The S&P 500 higher by 0.5 percentage point. This is the fourth month in a row that the S&P 500 has rallied. And the NASDAQ finishing the month in the red, down Romaine by 1.53%.
Yeah, I mean, look, any person who out there who has a Bloomberg terminal, just run RRG on your terminal and you'll see what happened here over the past month. This wasn't cash coming out of the market. This was a rotation. So you saw it out of some of those growth names into, I guess, what is quote-unquote value, at least into some of those cyclical names here. You talk about 41.81. That was basically where we were to end last month, to end April. And this is basically where we are right now, 4,200 and change, 4,204 to be exact here. So this is a market that has effectively gone nowhere. It's sort of oscillated around basically money looking for a home. And that seems to be what a lot of the people we've been talking to, guys, on this program and on our other programs seem to be saying, that people are looking to stay invested. They're buying into the longer-term economic outlook here. It's just, they're just not necessarily in agreement, I guess, on where specifically within the market they want to stay.
Yeah, because for every sort of investor we speak to about whether there's room to run still in big tech, for one that will say, no, get into cyclicals, there will be someone out there saying, look, growth, you still can't fight against it. Big tech is where it's been. And interesting that we saw today, NVIDIA really lead the charge, big chip makers, but also notably, you know, I'm looking at a chart now for our radio viewers of small caps kind of rolling over in terms of underperformance. The Russell 2000 has actually done pretty darn well on the week, up 2.8%, but not as well as some of the other major benchmarks. It's interesting that small caps perhaps underperformed, Tim, when we've seen such stellar performance from certain meme stocks. AMC has up 1,300% on the year. I mean, it's down on the day, but what a run. It's doubled this week alone.
Yeah, I mean, just today it was as high as 38% at one point in the day, but if you blinked, you missed the decline. I mean, this thing was all over the place. Hey, I want to get to some news that you guys broke just a little earlier about Rivian, the electric automaker. Yeah. It is potentially seeking an IPO that could value it as high as $70 billion when it goes public. Just a staggering amount of money. Have you seen these trucks and SUVs? Yeah. They are really cool, and they are zippy, of course. And this is Amazon backed, by the way. And there's a great video of Jeff Bezos really going fast in the Texas desert out to retrieve one of his test rockets. And it looks like he is having a fun time going fast in this.
Well, this is, I find this interesting because you remember, you know, I don't know, you go back 2-3 years ago. I mean, the only real discussion you could have about EVs was pretty much Tesla. And now you got these smaller companies like Rivian and Lordstown, but then of course now you got GM Ford also in the mix.
Notable that they're not using a SPAC either, actually going through the initial public offering process, getting banks to underwrite it, of course, and Goldman, JP Morgan going to be taking a chip out of that. But 70 billion is one phenomenal market capitalization overall, so we'll see how the CEO continues to steer that. Notable that actually we had a little bit of a bounce back in the SPAC part of the market. Some of the more
SPACs are back?
riskier parts
is
of the market.
What you're telling me?
SPACs, I'm not going to call them back, but they certainly just bounced off their lows.
Oh, wonderful. All
yeah,
right.
SPACs
I'll take all my profits out of AMC and put them into SPACs.
SPACs are back, but I'm going to try not to think about them for the next 3 days as I'm trying to grill out in the rain here in the tri-state area happening this weekend for Memorial Day weekend. I might be thinking a little bit about inflation, though. There's a great chart in the Bloomberg that shows the prices of ground beef, American cheese, ice cream, tomatoes, chips, and white bread two levels not seen in just a few years. I'm not necessarily, Caroline, eating those things this weekend.
Are you a faux meat kind of a guy, Tim?
Yeah,
Are you more of a
I'm
whole
about the
grain,
beyond and
kind
impossible.
of a brown bread?
Yeah, we're a bunch of East Coast elites over here. So I mean, look, you know, I love this index. I guess this is the heart of America here, right? Ground beef, white bread, American cheese. I don't see the faux meat in this index. I don't see the whole grain bread. I don't see, I don't know, beer, wine.
Yes,
those
White
things.
Claw.
I mean, who's
Where's
having
that?
a Memorial Day party without alcohol? Am I the only one?
Yeah, we're gonna have to look.
You're
we're gonna
no
have to
Gen
look
Z,
at
Romaine.
the beer and wine index. Okay, I'm gonna look for that in the terminal. Hey, you guys have a great holiday weekend. That's gonna do it for our
Find Carol. Bring her
cross-platform
back.
coverage
Is she
today.
around? Is
We're
she
gonna
okay?
do it again next week,
All right.
same time, same place, right here on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and YouTube. This is Bloomberg.